Let's call to order the Board of Directors meeting and budget hearing for January. Is it a budget hearing tonight too?
No.
No, sorry.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to
Okay.
edit that, sorry.
Just proof that I do read it. Called together the Board of Directors meeting for January 13th, 2022, the first meeting of the new year. And so let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Ready, begin.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Were we getting Rosa in?
There.
She's just,
You can see her in the corner.
oh, perfect, thank you. Okay. Denise, can we get a roll call, please?
Yes. Director Walper,
Here.
Director Martinez,
Here.
Director Berman,
Here.
Director Johnston,
Here.
Director Wheeler,
Here.
Vice Chair Shibahara. Here. Chair Rydell.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Awesome, thank you. And Denise, was the meeting properly notified?
Yes, it was.
Thank you. All right, item B, adoption of the agenda.
Chair Idell, I move to approve the agenda.
Moved,
Second.
moved and seconded. All in favor, raise your right hand.
Motion carries.
All right. C, Board of Directors reports. Director Walper.
I have nothing this month.
Okay. Director Berman,
Nothing to report.
quick. We'll skip Director Wheeler. No, Director Wheeler.
I'm just gonna follow suit, nothing to report.
Oh, wow.
Hey,
Kind of crazy.
All the pressure's
well,
on
I'm
you.
gonna say something. No, I think for me, I'm excited to see the kids back in school. It was a really nice break. However, I think the consistency and the schedule and all of us getting back up and getting to school and having our activities has been really positive. And I'm gonna still chair Rydell's report, the Grease, the musical. It's coming the end of the month, and the kids are working so hard. Super excited that we're able to continue to provide that opportunity for our students, and I know even the middle school students are participating, so hopefully it'll be a community affair. That's my update.
awesome, thank you.
Yeah,
Director
thanks.
Johnston.
I do. I'll have a couple things. I was able to attend a middle school choir concert, and Miss Hubbard has just done an amazing job with that group, and she's obviously working with every grade level and working extremely hard. So it was well organized, well attended, and it was nice to see everybody out in the middle school auditorium. And just special thanks to all the teachers and staff. They've been working so hard. Power outage, COVID, kids in and out, and I'm also, along with Vice Chair Shibahara, it's nice to have my kids home, but it's good to have them back at school. And I'm excited, baseball registration is going full swing. We're already above 160 kiddos that have registered. And last, I was excited to look at the classified list. I didn't see any bus driver positions. That means they must be fully hired. So I'm excited to see that.
Thank you, Director Johnston. I too attended the middle school winter concert as well as the high school winter concert, music, both band and choirs. And there were more spectators at the middle school than there was at the high school, so that's always fun to see. But again, at the middle school, I think there was 6 different groups, six unique groups that performed on stage, which is just phenomenal. So, and then high school and middle school all-state music is this weekend. So we have middle schoolers are down there starting today, perform tomorrow, both band and choir, and then high school performers go down tomorrow and perform on Sunday. So a good representation from Estacada, and excited to see our students down there performing at a state level. So very exciting. So, and that is it for me. Oh, Rosa, sorry. Direct.
Nothing to report at the moment. Thank you, guys.
Hey, I thought you were telling me to look at the camera. I'm like, I don't need to look at the camera. Nobody wants me to look at the camera. All right, moving on. Strategic plan pillar reports. And first up is student success with Mr. Sullivan.
Good evening,
Good evening.
and welcome back to the Happy New Year. Our goals for the Estacada School District for student success, we have two goals, as you know. One of those goals started really in September, August, and it'll go through the school year because that's a student success goal where we're measuring students' proficiency levels in essential learning standards, and that goal is we want 85% of our students to reach 100% proficiency in their standards. Our second goal is really a goal as for the year 2022, and that is for our PLC survey. And in our PLC survey, our goal is to reach a mean score of 4.08. And that was given in October. We got the results in November, and we're just now beginning to start to do some of the actions for that. The actions that I am taking on are helping our, really one of the key goals I have in jobs is to help support our building leaders and keep them focused on the prize, and that is student learning. We know how busy they are. We know all the things that they're going through their lives, but we have to stay focused on student learning. So I will be there to redirect, provide any additional resources, anything I can to support our building leaders to help their teachers and students reach our goals. For PLCs, my major goal is to work with our team, this teaching and learning team, and provide resources to PLC teams to become more effective, to look at the data, to evaluate the data, and make decisions on that data. Speaking of data, the first slide that I wanted to show you, we have, as we mentioned earlier, we do have a new dashboard this year, and this new dashboard indicates or identifies 3 categories. Research tells us that if students are attending school, if they're completing their work, and if they're learning or meeting proficiency, they have a higher rate of success after high school if they're at 80% in those 3 categories. So what you see in front of you is the number of students in each building that are below 80%. Remember, we want every kid to be 80% and above. These bar graphs indicate students that are below 80%. So for example, at Estacada High School, we have 96 students out of about 500. So really 25% of our students have attendance less than 80% of the time. For work completion, we have 264 students out of about 500 who have turned in less than 80% of their work. And we have 293, or almost 60% of our students who are not meeting 80% or better proficiency in their standards. We run this every week, although this data is from 1/5 because we have somebody who's absent for a week. But we run this data every week, and our schools see it, they work with it at the local level with their teams, their leadership teams. At the high school, they have 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th, and 12th grade success teams. They're all using this data to try to attack it and bring those numbers down. You will see our secondary is struggling, while at our elementary schools, they're doing a little bit better. Or I'd even say quite a bit better in all of these categories.
What's the total enrollment at the middle school?
The middle school is approximately 400 in that neighborhood. I haven't checked it, and I think you'll get
We'll
that.
get the numbers later.
Yes, soon. All the schools are around 430, I think, at River Mill, if you take out the pre-K.
406 Clackamas River, 422 River Mill, 397 middle school, 507 high school. And there's your enrollment report.
Well, I've done 2 reports now. So, good question. I mean, those are the basic areas. This next graph, I'm going to change next week because this is a one-time, it's a new graph that I'm starting to show. And I'm going to create some stacked bar graphs to indicate the change from one week to the next. But if I took every single measurement we have given all of our students, K-12, we would have about 28,000 measurements. Every quiz, every test, every essay, whatever it might have been that was used to measure proficiency towards an essential standard. Of all of those 28,000, we have 2,000 who scored a 1 and about 5,300 who scored a 2, not meeting. Then you'll see that we've got 13,000 of those assessments have met, and another 5,700 have exceeded those proficiency levels. And so I wanted to show you at the smallest level how many of these are starting to become, and I'm hoping we'll see some good steady growth.
Are those, really quick, are those just the assignments, the ELS assignments?
That are attached to an essential learning
To an essential
standard.
learning. Okay, thank you.
It might not be like an entry ticket or something like that. It has something that's actually been assessed somehow towards a standard.
Or standard, okay, thank you.
So in the next 30 days, my job is to try to move Martinez a little bit. And my job is to really get with our teachers, our principals. I meet with them now weekly, rounding, and every 2 weeks as a team. And I'm going to start meeting every week with them individually to redirect, to help focus on the work that we have to do to help improve student learning. So that is one of the biggest things that I plan to do in the next couple of weeks, is really get that going and help them, because they have been so busy, and kind of say, time out, let's take a break, let's really focus on student learning. That will be one of the big adjustments that I will make. And the focus on what's going on in the classroom. One of the questions I'm asking is, I'll ask somebody, how's things going? Things are going well. Well, what does well look like and feel like? So I'm trying to get down into the granular level to understand and have our leaders really see what it is that is making a difference or not. If it's making a difference, let's keep doing it. If it's not, let's stop doing it. I do want to say that secondary level finals week is coming up. Usually prior to finals week, a month or so, there's a little fatigue, but they really start to kick it into gear. Those of you who have had children in the school know that those last few weeks before the end of a term, you will see an uptick. And I hope at the next meeting I will have some bar graphs that show you that information. Any questions?
Yeah, I do. So the bar graph that showed the percentages that are 80% or below, I think it's slide 5 on my deck. When we compare that then to that other slide of the 28,000 essential learning standard assignments, so these two graphs show kind of two different stories to me, right? Because the one that shows the assignment-based, we've got, what was it? I don't know, 19,000 assignments that were 3s and 4s versus 7,000 assignments that were 1s and 2s. So is that just a functionality of we still have more standards that we're doing, or there seems to be a disconnect between those two?
The disconnect is what we're reporting are two different things. This slide is identifying students who are in proficiency that are at 80% and above proficiency.
For all of them?
For all of those
Okay.
standards. So
I got it.
you could have 100%, you can have 80%. The other graph is telling it 99%. The other graph is just telling us this whole massive number of data points. And so, like I said, if Director Johnson's at 80, you're at 80, Director Shibahara's at 100, Director Wheeler's at 0, Director Berman's at 2, so on. The percentages, we have 3 people and then 2 who are way down there. It's going to skew things. Does that make sense?
It does, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I just wanted to make sure I was thinking of it, but this also, the actual number of assignments in essential learning standards, right? If you get a 2 on one of those for that, then you're not meeting proficiency, even though all of the other essential learning standards, you are a 3 or a 4.
Correct.
And so that's where this number gets magnified, because we are holding students accountable to be successful in every single learning standard, which is why these numbers are significantly higher. Am I seeing that correctly?
Yes,
Okay.
very correct.
Perfect, thank you.
I have a question as it relates to just what's the significance of 80%?
The research out of the University of Chicago on high school success and beyond indicates 80%. Their research over time shows that if students can be consistently 80% or higher in those three areas, they have
Attendance, work completion, and passing scores, B or better.
they will have a higher degree of success post-high school.
Now that you said that, I remember you saying that right when you started. I was just trying to relate that to the 85%, because as school board members, our job is to evaluate our superintendent, and one of the first things on the list is 85% of K-12 students will demonstrate proficiency in all essential learning standards. So for simplicity's sake, I would, and it doesn't necessarily correlate, but having this at 85%, or what is that, if 80% is the magic number, then it is what it is, but do you guys drill down on it and say, what does 85% look like, and how much farther of a stretch is it? And if we lower it to 70, where are we? Like, how do you drill down to relate, so it comes back to the original question of, how do we improve from 72% overall to 85%?
Keeping an eye on the prize and having the data and looking at it and doing something with it, and not just talking about it, but acting on it. It would be easier if we just made 80%, so we had 80, 80, 80 all across the board. But we don't want to be just at the bare minimum. We want to reach. Some of us would like that 85 to have been a 100% goal. And we had that debate quite a bit over the last 2 summers, is some of us really want, hey, if we mean all means all, we want 100%. And so the 80% is for research and predicting. 85 is a goal that we have set ourselves to try to push us beyond the limit.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Sullivan? All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Have a good
Appreciate it. All right. Next up is inclusive culture with Mr. Hobson, Ms. Akins, and Ms. Hayes. So Mr. Hobson's
Good
up
evening.
first.
Happy New Year. Good to see you all. All right. So our strong, inclusive, collaborative culture, again, is our 3 areas that we're going to talk about tonight: student engagement, employee engagement, and district services. I'm going to talk about student engagement, and then my good friend and colleague, Kelly Hayes, is going to talk about employee engagement and district services. So our goal, which we're launching on our return into the school year here, 2022, we're back from break, our student engagement by fall of 2022, we are going to score a 4.04, which is a plus 0.10 improvement over last year. And what our students are telling us when we're listening to our student voice is that they have told us that their principal is a good leader, which is a great testament to the leadership that we have in individual buildings. And so that was the highest score that our students told us in the fall, and that scored a 4.38. Conversely, our students also told us that they need some regular feedback. So I regularly receive feedback from school staff about my academic progress, was the lowest score that they provided. So that's the area that we're really going to be working on. Again, thinking about our listening to our students and their voice, the top box score, this is the percentage of students that scored us of 5, best in class, is that 52% of students marked that as a 5, is that learning is important at my school. So again, a reflection of the leadership and the teachers and the great job that they're doing. And then we also heard from our students that they need some more regular feedback from their school staff, teachers, about their academic progress. So 9.5% of students shared that that was a 5 for them. And so those areas are going to be the areas that we're working on, listening to our student voice, working on that, providing feedback. A good example of that in looking at the leader action plans that have been developed and ready to go is that students are going to have data files, their profiles of their learning. They're going to be doing in-class plan, do, study, acts around their learning. And so that was an example from River Mill Elementary, their plan, where they're going to have students visually tracking their data, keeping data folders so that teachers can provide that feedback that they're telling us that they need. So at this time, I'm going to ask Kelly, or I'll ask you guys if you have any questions, then Kelly will come up and talk about employee engagement and student and district services.
Questions? All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Welcome, Kelly.
Okay, so in employee engagement, again, we have a goal to increase our score here of by 0.05 to reach a 4.28, which will be measured in the fall of '22. To work towards this goal, our leaders have worked with their teams and based on feedback, developed action plans to work on over the next 90 days, which center around providing clear expectations and improving collaboration on employees with decisions that impact their jobs. In addition to providing these clear expectations, we're also utilizing our district leadership teams across the district to gather staff input and cascade the information around the decisions that are made. In district services, we're looking at maintaining our overall mean score of a 4.5 on the district services survey, again measured in the fall of '22. And again, leaders have developed action plans in conjunction with their teams, and these are focused really on aligning systems and resources to improve the overall operations and efficiencies in the departments. A good example of this is our nutrition services team standardizing the process in the kitchen for food prep to really focus on helping with the time that students are spending in line for their meals. We brought in a new cook and we added a grab and go station at the middle school, and they're currently aiming for a less than 7-minute in-line time. We had previous data that showed that they were wait times as high as 14 minutes on popular option days, such as like pizza days. And so we really thank our nutrition services staff for taking the feedback to heart and adjusting their daily process to improve this for our students. Another win I want to just share on that is a big win that we are tracking that data, and we have that data, and we're using that to continuously get better at getting better. Over our next 30 days, our action plans are really focusing on rounding, so gathering our data, which will be both qualitative and quantitative. We'll see trends emerging and looking at those themes to help us decide how to move forward with our leader action plans. Do we continue what we're doing? Do we adjust or do we abandon it? And as pillar leaders, Jason, Lisa, and I are excited to continue supporting our leaders district level.
Not a question, but a comment. The wait times, having a kiddo at the middle school, I have heard over the years that at times they didn't eat lunch because it took too long. And so I know it may seem like not a huge deal, but there are a lot of students at the middle school who may forego eating because they want to spend that time with their friends. So the quicker that we can make that for them, and that kudos to you guys and that whole team, because that does have a huge impact on student learning and how they feel throughout the day. So nicely done to everybody.
Yep.
I will make sure that gets back to nutrition services.
Please, thank you. Yep. All right, any other questions, comments? All right, thank you very much. Next up, Maggie Kelly, Communications Reports. She's confident. She started the timer before she even came up here.
Good evening, school board. For our Engaged Families and Community Pillar Report, we have our 2022 goal. Very excited to start with this. Our goal is to score a 4.07 on the Parent Engagement Survey. That will be an increase of 0.05. We're excited to break into that 4 range. We scored a 4.02 this year, and that is an increase of 0.24, which is really tremendous growth, especially given the context of the difficult past year that we weathered. So we're very proud of that, and that was tremendous work from our staff and our buildings communicating with families. Our lowest item still remains that I regularly receive feedback from school staff on how well my child is learning. Although if you look at that number, although it is low and it is still our lowest scoring item at 3.59, we do see substantial growth in that area at 0.38. That's a lot of growth. So really proud of the buildings, and that's clear evidence that the actions that they committed to are working. We just have further to go, and we want to ensure that we keep gaining momentum with those and using high leverage action items to keep gaining that, because we have a ways to go for sure. One thing I wanted to highlight as well, was an exciting win was that we had a significant increase in our parent engagement survey participation. We had a 32% increase in participation. It's exciting that we're getting the word out well and that we're truly representing our community. It's really important that we hear all members of the community in this survey, so that's exciting. We also had more than 70% of our Spanish-speaking families took the survey as well, so truly a great efforts made by translator and interpreters teams, so we're very proud of that work. Improvements that are in action, I know we're just starting, but we can already see some things working. Our business and operations department have committed to monthly video updates in communications, and we also include now a pulse check survey at the end of those communications on, is this information helpful? Is there other information you'd like to include? We want to be extremely transparent with our finances and our building improvements and operations. And we know we continue to have gaps to fill there, so excited to continue to commit to that. Our elementaries are working to increase PowerSchool accessibility to families. They're continuing to push out information to families on how to access PowerSchool, how PowerSchool works, how they can understand what they're seeing in PowerSchool, and then also working with their staff to give them time to update PowerSchool so that when families go into PowerSchool, they're seeing the most up-to-date student information. Estacada Middle School recently started utilizing Parent Square, which is an exciting update, and they're very new in this, but we're already seeing exciting efforts being made. They're also making specific phone calls regarding positive growth. This is an example of an action that they're continuing to commit to, but they just made slight adjustments, making those really specific phone calls that relate to a student's academic or behavioral success, not just making it, your student did a great job, but hey, we really appreciated and saw growth in X, Y, and Z, and making those calls really meaningful. Estacada High School is committing to increasing their standards-based learning and reporting communication. We know we have some gaps to cover there as well in ensuring that families can understand what they are seeing in their students' progress. And they're also sending out regular progress reports to families so that families know at any given time where their student is before the end of the semester sneaks up on them, because we are almost there. Some exciting wins, just a couple that I wanted to highlight. Again, we're very early in this journey, but some wins other than our fantastic survey participation. The Estacada Middle School received the Parent Square training, and I've already seen, we can go in there, we can see what staff members are sending, and just some really great specific communications to families that are exciting. We also receive a weekly report of what has been sent so that we can recognize the staff members that are doing good work and committing with fidelity to communicating with families. So that's very helpful in accountability and encouraging those that are really committing to this work. And a photo from the middle school that I really wanted to highlight. This was posted on social media in one of our neighborhood watch groups, which we often see, you know, frustrations and struggles in neighborhood watch groups. So to see this, a parent posted the handwritten letters that they had gotten from one of their teachers, Miss Warren, Elizabeth Warren. So really great work, and this is clearly impactful. They said it made their child's day every time she received one of these notes, and just a really good way of strengthening that bond between the home and the school, because we think our families should be involved and know what's happening in their child's classroom. We also have 30 employees district-wide that are now utilizing SMORE to give families regular updates. This is up from 4 district employees that were using it last year. And why this is so important is we get so many views on these, more than emails, more than even social media sometimes, more than just a phone call. We're averaging 1,200 to 1,500 views every time a school sends one of these, and about 500 views every time a teacher sends one to their large classroom group. So a lot of people are viewing these, a lot of people are going back, utilizing those links. So it is an effective communication tool. Again, this is not about more communication, this is about effective communication, and SMORE, the data shows that is helping our families. I'll move on now to our communications report for January. It's a very busy month as we adjust to Omicron and keeping our families updated on everything that is going on right now. So we have made some adjustments just to make sure that our families are always updated on what is going on in the schools as Omicron impacts many schools around us. So our projects in progress right now, we are working on completing an academic video series featuring standards-based learning and reporting. We have a script ready to go, and we've worked with some staff members to outline how we can start a regular video series on explaining standards-based learning and reporting to families. So we're excited to begin that work and, of course, measure it to see if this is helpful to families as they begin to understand this type of reporting. We're also transitioning to a monthly district news update. So this is just a one-stop shop where they can look at the operations update, the financial update, and some good news from around the district. Again, we're trying to be convenient, having one place that people can go to get all those updates. We really want it to make it as easy as possible for families and the community to know what's going on. We are having a translation services transition. Our translation and interpretation team member is going on leave, so we are working with some people in the buildings to ensure that our translation services do not drop off. We've given fantastic support to our families, and we're seeing a lot of bonds and strengthening and communication there, so it's important to us that we really nail that transition. And then we are also doing a website transition. We've outlined a plan of attack there, and we hope to begin transitioning that service in July, but we're forming a committee right now so that we can assess what vendors really provide the best website service. We know we have a ways to go with websites, and we want to truly select a website that's going to be super user-friendly to the community and to staff members that can actually go into the website and edit things easily so that we can have an updated website. So that is a big project that is in progress. Completed projects right now, our test to say communication and protocols are established. That was a big thing to get off the ground. I wrote in this almost 100 families served. That is well over 100 since I wrote this just a couple days ago. So it's an effective method of communication, and we are seeing that families are very easily able to say, yes, I would like my child tested, or no, I would not like my child tested, so that we're able to have that communication back and forth, and families can feel free to opt out or opt in at their own rate. And then they just get a text message right after their child is tested that your child is negative or their child is positive. We're trying to eliminate any wait times as you're anxious about what is going on with your child. So we also had a school closure that was a big communication effort from all the buildings, and a little under a 3-hour reunion time, which is pretty great. We've seen other districts that have hours and hour-long reunification times, and real-time Spanish translation, which was exciting to be able to provide as well. And it's a testament to how well the team worked together that we were able to get that communication out with no internet or cell service. So we're proud of the work that was done there. And another thing where the stats have changed since I last wrote this, we have well over 1,500 total views in our All in Live series. I believe we just completed our 3rd or 4th All in Live with Superintendent Carpenter. And it's just a transparent way to have two-way communication with the community. They ask fantastic on-topic questions, and Superintendent Carpenter answers them as transparently as possible. We have lots of questions about COVID, Omicron, closures, what we're doing in our schools. So again, this has been a very successful platform that we're always excited. We had our last one on Tuesday, and we already have over 400 views. So very rarely is there a community meeting where we would have that level of participation. So it's very exciting. And of course, website and document updates to maintain updated COVID-19 communications. It's really important that we have the most up-to-date protocols out there, because I want families to know what they're committing to when they send their kids to school, and it changes very regularly at this point. And then lastly, a celebration. Our Estacada Communications Department received a national award. Superintendent Carpenter was named a superintendent to watch by the National School PR Association. It's a tremendous award. We had a lot of positive recognition for that, and exciting that our team and Superintendent Carpenter is really committed to communicating well with this community.
Yes.
Did they define what to watch me
I was
for?
just-
Yes, this is not an FBI watch
You're
list.
telling us it's positive, but I don't know.
Could you define Power School for me?
Yeah, absolutely. Power School is our student information system. You can find attendance information in there. You can find your students' grades in there. You can update things like your contact information. So it's a main hub for student information.
And the parents can get that online?
Yep, so they go onto the website and they can see, oh, my child has a 4 in this, a 3 in this, and they were absent 2 days ago. What's going on with that?
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. I have yet to ask Director Martinez if she has any questions, so I'm going to start with her. I'm getting a no. Okay.
Thank you.
No.
Any other questions before?
I got a question on the power outage.
Oh, yeah.
So phones went down completely?
phone lines went down except for Verizon, it seemed. So we were able to utilize a staff member that has a Verizon phone line, but we also did a plus delta on this and learned what we can improve. And we're gonna have hotspots from various carriers in case this happens again in the future. We know it's a rural area. We know it'll happen again in the future.
And I have this question comes with a little bit of bias. Is there still copper going to the, copper phone lines going to the buildings? Are they utilized? Because those should work in
the
the power
bat
outage.
phones. Yes, we have bat phones at our buildings. We had to update that protocol, so we do have one at each building that we were able to call out from. But sending mass notifications was a real struggle. Yeah.
Each building, we run through the fax machine, which is still hardwired in. And so we do have one plugged-in hardwired phone, but just the multitude of phone calls that are coming in moments like that, one phone and one line doesn't cut it.
But there's still a way to get out if there
For
was
sure.
like a true emergency
sir.
other than just the plain old power outage.
Yep.
We definitely call 911, and they were definitely utilized by our secretaries who did a fantastic job triaging. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Maggie. All right, next up, Mike Ware, Building and Facilities Report.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, up-to-date buildings and facilities report. First I want to talk about is just the evidence. Evidence indicates that a clean, warm, safe, and dry environment in the school setting is very much connected to high-quality teaching and learning. And so therefore, the district has decided to move forward with choosing one specific question out of the student engagement survey, which is the My School is Clean. For the 2022 goal, we are seeking to score a 3.97 on the My School is Clean question of the student engagement. So my next slide will be talking about what kind of actions we're looking at primarily. As Maggie mentioned, we're early in the phase, early in the cycle, but our leaders are focused on student engagement and student voice. At our elementary schools, they're incentivizing cleanliness, and Clackamas River has a golden plunger incentive, which is very fun, to incentivize cleaning of their restrooms, which is impactful and creates ownership of our students. River Mill has a very similar incentive program to engage our students in cleaning and maintaining their environment. At the secondary level, it's really capturing student voice. What do they consider clean? What are they thinking is modern at the high school level and at the secondary or middle school level, as well as our directors collecting evidence through student forums and open kind of conversations, whether it's on the bus, with a custodian during the day, at lunchtime. We're looking primarily to improve our systems and be more efficient in custodial services, whether that's our cleaning practices or our methods, oversight, coaching, to be able to, again, continue with that growth of cleaning to change to increase our score, rather. And then collaboration and coordination of building improvement projects with directors, principals, outside stakeholders, again, to continue to be safe, warm, and dry, and to improve our buildings for teaching and learning. Over the next 30 days, similar to what was mentioned before, I'll be collecting data. We're very early right now, but we hope to be collecting some data throughout this month through rounding, pulse surveys, and really seeing those measures, that data that we have and that we're collecting is really working. Is what we're doing working? And so I hope to be able to bring this back to the board next month to show that meaningful data, to be able to say we're going to pivot and adjust a little bit because we're not seeing the growth that we'd like to see, or we're going to continue with that as we move forward. Moving into buildings and facilities projects, wanted to highlight some of the projects we did over winter break. A very much important and needed project, carpet cleaning and bulb replacement. It's tedious, but it's needed, and it's hard to do when students and staff are in our buildings. Preventative maintenance, our HVAC units. Now all of our HVACs have been serviced, including blowing out the coils. General grounds cleanup. We finally installed the final bay doors of the gym doors at the high school, the main gym. And then this one is notable and worth celebrating, is repairing the heating system in our Meadows classroom. This project would have cost the district about $9,000 if we outsourced. Luckily, we have some very skilled facility maintenance individuals and a leader within that department, and was able to repair this system for under $500, and that's time and material combined. Access control, all exterior doors are now complete. That's a huge win for our district, a huge safety improvement for our district. We have one set of internal doors at Clackamas River, the gym doors that we need to add to card readers. And then the next steps is addressing the buildings that we've added. So we had our portable units and some outbuildings that we've added to the scope of work. And then finally, the intrusion system, which is the burglary system, the active, if we have someone break in, will be a final phase of this project.
So those key cards should work now for our board members to enter any school building?
Any school building.
Intrusion or process in the doors, like when you have a lockdown?
Yes.
Is that, so like if a teacher, I feel like I heard something at the high school that like there was concern that they were gonna get locked, they couldn't get in fast enough because of keys or access. I don't know, I guess it just sounded like it was, some people ended up propping doors open because they didn't want to get stuck
We have
in a room.
a few different methods to prevent people getting locked out who shouldn't be locked out.
Okay.
Looking at permissions on their cards.
Gotcha.
For example, certain district staff have emergency response cards. So they, in an event of a lockdown, where we press that button or active threat, everything locks down, but it still leaves myself or other key members access to get in. Keys are still available and still functional for most of our buildings at this time. And so we would just need to work through kind of case-by-case scenarios in those type of situations. Yeah.
But it's true, if the lockdown button goes and you're outside,
Yeah.
we have some work to do to get some folks inside, but no, they're out.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you have to have your key
Correct.
card with you at all times.
Correct.
One of our methods to kind of mitigate that is also knowing that if there's maybe a transitioning teacher from one school to the other, we have our facility and maintenance doing their roundabout and kind of checking the grounds where we can assist. And again, some more work to be done for sure. One of the grounds project that we talked about is Ranger Woods. I'm going to start this little video because it's fairly long. In early fall, spring, and summertime, we've had some safety issues, primarily in the Ranger Woods due to debris falling from wildfires or just from winter storms, rather. Individuals, unfortunately, staying in the Ranger Woods, and it was very dirty, very, very dense. The district did as much as they could to clean up and start that process to change the makeup and clean up that area. Over the winter break, we had a contractor come in and was able to really clean out the entire area. And as you see the video here, it's a drastic improvement, not only for safety, but for our grounds too. So our plan is, again, to have this on a schedule, to not let it get to overgrowth like we've had before, do preventative maintenance, do the spraying that we need to spray in the spring, and then continue upkeep on this area so we can maintain the safety and the grounds of the district. Keep going. I can send you the video through Mr. Carpenter if you'd like. Kitchen project was completed over the winter break as well. Very excited. Like most projects, we had some barriers, and we worked through those barriers though, and successfully. We were kind of concerned about the timeline, but we did hit that mark. The contractor was able to complete the project, so we had a functional and efficient kitchen going on day one from returning from winter break. Our nutrition services director, our nutrition services staff did a wonderful job communicating the why, showing the data that we needed this, and so we're very happy for them and having that ability. On to Buzz Randall Stadium and the turf project. So we're in a kind of a holding pattern right now. We just completed the boring phase, so that field assessment phase, and now we're in the process of the design phase, as well as submitting for local permits and the 1200C permit. The reason why we have to do a 1200C permit, DEQ requires it when we start talking about removing X amount of earth from one location. And that is really going to be our biggest kind of holdup right now. We know it takes 4 to 6, maybe a little bit longer to get that approval. Our anticipation, and we'll talk about proposed schedule here in a second, is to get that out the week of the 19th of January. And I'll jump to the schedule here and talk a little bit more. But again, we're going through the permit phases right now, still waiting on final design, and really just kind of working with our engineers and geotech engineers with that process.
Did they find any surprises down there?
They don't have their report yet, but to my knowledge, nothing that came out of it from when they were on site. No oil.
Tires.
No tires to be, yeah.
Oil might be
Old John
nice.
Deere
eh?
tractors.
Solve
Get
lot
a
of
couple turf
problems.
fields. All right, so let's talk about proposed schedule, where you might have some questions as well. So right now, January through March, we're through that field study permit application, final design phase. Coming into March, which we anticipate getting the approval from DEQ early March, we would love to mobilize and leveraging some of our community resources and support by doing some preliminary earthwork through rough grade, trenching, dirt removal, and that's really a lot of big part of this job is removing a lot of the dirt, rather. April from May to May, turf fabrication, and then eventually getting transported up to Estacada. That takes, for the creation of the turf, 3 to 4 weeks. Transporting it from the south, which is about probably about a week or two. So we're looking at maybe a 4 to 5 week process for that. At that same time, the contractors for the contractors that we're going to be working with will be coming in and doing the final prepping of the actual turf field, final grade, drainage, all the subgrade, all the details that they know they need to do. And excuse me, I don't know all of those details, but I know it's the final things. May through June, installation of the turf, and that wraps us up if we were to be so lucky to not have any complications, not have any weather issues, to be substantially completed by the beginning of June, with us being able to celebrate graduation in June. I really want to stress the fact to the board that this is a projected schedule, and we have a lot of unknowns that we might run into, but even with some wiggle room, this gives us a pretty good roadmap on where we need to go, where we'll be in June. And I'm very excited for the opportunity to move forward with this. Any questions?
Yes. When do you expect, based on your timeline, when do you expect to have a meeting with the community that wants to help out? Because there's a number, I get a phone call once a month now. Hey, we need to plan for this.
That's a very good question, Director Walper. I really would love to have the next meeting when we have final design, so we know what we need to do preliminary to support the contractors who will be coming in. And so until we have that, we won't have really a direction of where we need to go and what we need to do and how we want to mobilize.
So you can't give me an idea as to what you're hoping for?
Yeah, so I did reach out to the engineers yesterday, and I said, hey, are we on track? Where are we at? I got a general response, and so what I can do is try to push a little harder to get a better timeline and report that to Superintendent Carpenter to report to you.
Yeah, I'm not going to hold your feet to the fire. I just want to be able to tell these guys,
Yeah.
it looks like April 1st, maybe, or.
Yeah, I respect that. I mean, right now, after talking with the engineers and knowing that if we get the DEQ 1200C pass, early March is when we're going to be ready to mobilize, but we'll need to meet before then, right? So
Right.
we're organized and ready to go. Let me see if I can get at least a tentative window of time for that final design, okay?
That'd be great. Thank you, Mike.
Look at the doors that are between the gym and this building. They don't have you don't have key cards for those, do you? Is there a certain time of the day where you cannot open those doors?
You're talking about entry to like the
breezeways?
sports hallway?
Correct.
Yes, they have access cards, readers.
Not the
breezeway.
breezeways.
Oh, the
The breezeway, I'm
breezeways,
sorry,
I'm
yeah, the
sorry, the breezeways, no. Not this
So
time.
the breezeways are unlocked during the school day so kids can move freely through.
And then night janitor crews, do they
They
lock those?
typically lock those up in the evening time.
So I have some questions around the design phase. The designs that are being worked on right now, is it field only, and we're not like taking a look at what the overall future of Buzz Randall Stadium, future vision of maybe what we as the district will want? Is that two different conversations?
We've been focused on the turf construction and the field itself. We haven't had a lot of future conversations. I'll defer to Superintendent Carpenter on the future of Buzz Randall.
Yeah, right now the conversation has been primarily about the field and the location of the scoreboard. It has not included a conversation long-term about the vision of the stadium itself, the crow's nest, parking, entry, and some of the other key aspects of that facility. I do think, and you've mentioned this before, Vice Chair Shibahara, and it's something we do need to put probably a long-term strategy and some renderings together of what we all vision that stadium to be in the long term. But right now, the conversation has only been about the project that's been authorized, and it's replacing the natural grass field with the turf. And while we're there, we're going to have to upend the current scoreboard, and so it makes sense to upgrade that scoreboard and move it to a different location.
And I mean, obviously the whole, entrance and just some of the
Yep, all of it.
access to the fields and stuff will be addressed, I'm sure.
Yep.
There are, to answer some of that question, there are things that we need to consider as an oversight team and as a leadership team of safety and security. What equipment do we need to properly maintain a turf field? If there's extra, we need more seating. We're replacing those bleachers. So there is a list of things like that that we need to consider just for more of immediate planning, not far down the future planning, but more for right now.
Closer term. And are we going to get an opportunity to review all of that? Or
Yes.
is that going to be presented in like a board meeting or something?
Absolutely, yes.
Do you have anything specifically you're wondering about?
Me?
Yeah. Feel like you're beating around
You
the
mean
bush.
the hedge conversation?
I'll defer to the superintendent.
No, I just, to actually just say it in a very constructive way, I just think it should be a holistic view. I'm not saying one way or the other. It just seems like an appropriate time to have a longer-term vision and conversation about the layout
Agreed.
and some of the access and such around the field. And it feels like there's a lot of emotions around that word, and so I just am trying to make sure we're just looking further ahead and not just at this one project and then putting ourselves
Well said.
whole and not thinking to the future.
Well said.
With the scoreboard, can we talk more about, can we dive into this a little bit right now? Is it okay?
Sure. Yeah, this is your meeting.
Because we had walked around, I know that us two, Superintendent Carpenter and Mike Ware were there, John Greenup, Jeremiah Platt, and I'm trying to think who else was there. Denise?
Yeah.
Anyway, we had walked and just to see, because we were talking about whether we were cutting or doing a balance fill and all of these different things. And so we had discussed the scoreboard. We measured some things distance-wise, and then the possibility of moving bleachers on the visitor side. I'm trying to think, what specifically with the access?
Well, again, it's just more safety, security, access, visibility. I do think we also need to consider soccer and the impact the hedge does to the flow of the game. And I feel that whether it's netting or, I don't know. I just feel like as we look at this holistic field for our community, we should look at the holistic field, even though we only have the money to do this part of the project. So I just want to make sure we're doing that right balance.
Well, we did meet with our lead soccer coaches and our athletic director this week to kind of get their feedback, and they will be a part of that steering committee as we move forward. And they already had provided some valuable feedback, and they mentioned the loss of many soccer balls in those hedges and can disrupt the flow of practice and games. So yes, that is very much on our mind, and we want to make sure that we have their voice at the table when we're constructing this project.
And whether the scoreboard, all of that. I just want to make sure that we're being thoughtful.
And I apologize, I haven't watched a soccer game in a long time, so I don't know how it affects it as much as it does football, because I'm more intimately involved with that. So, those are opinions and that need to be shared and thought through when we do this, because there's a good time to do it, and it's going to be in that March to before June timeframe if we do something drastic. I know from the feedback that I've received, because there's quite a few people that know that we're doing this and lean on my expertise of being involved in the school board to ask questions. The first thing that comes up is, why are you putting turf in? We like playing in the mud. And of course, these are football people. Then the next question is, don't you dare take out the four-letter word hedge, because it's the whole reason that Estacada has.
I'm like, wait.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
So, I know it's, like you said, it's an emotionally charged thing, and the good news is a full-size soccer field fits in there with the hedge. So, I know that's come into question quite a few times, and
I think it would be good to know the numbers of maintaining that hedge and how much does across the district?
Oh, yeah, we could easily give you that. I mean, just, yeah, absolutely. We can provide that data for you.
Yeah, yeah, and it's just, again, like you said, it's the opportunity to have the conversation
Yep.
and to look to the future.
Yep.
And I want to make sure that we're building out a welcoming environment, and, I mean, I just think it's worth having a conversation.
I probably was notified of this, but I know we have wiggle room, but what's the plan B for graduation location if
Yeah.
it's not there?
Our first graduation, thank you for asking that, because I've prepped our principal, Amy Hudson, that as well when we first started. Our first graduation planning meeting is actually tomorrow. And so we're going to be starting that phase, and we'll make sure that we have a plan B in place just in case. So we are starting earlier than normal in our planning for that reason.
All right. Any other questions for Mike? Director Martinez, any questions? I don't know why I'm shouting. I have a microphone. It's totally fine.
Quit yelling at me.
All right, thanks, Mike. All right, next up,
Thanks, Mike.
finance reports. Director of Finance, good evening.
In my present. Just close, can I still this? So for the finance pillar, hold on, gotta get my.
Pointed at that thing.
Different spot. There are two goals for the sustainable finance and accountability. The first goal is to score a 4.08, and this is for the 2022 year, in the employee engagement survey on the question, the superintendent manages district finances appropriately. I want to note that in the fall of 2021, we scored a 4.03, which is an increase of 0.25. So we're very excited to see how we can continue to improve this goal. The second goal is to maintain zero findings on our annual audit report. We have successfully done that in the past few years, and you'll get to hear a little bit later about our 2021 financials. Wins. So the wins I'm also going to correlate to how we're working to improve our goal number one. So we're going to start utilizing our Forecast 5. With that, we'll be able to have some monthly reports, possibly board reports with better graphs that will pull live data out of our software. We'll be able to have comparisons with other districts, such as salaries, demographics, staffing. Also, it will help us with reports regarding state funding. So once the state starts coming out with forecasting, it will provide reports for us that I can share with the board and with the leadership. The second one of our big goals has been not only our purchase order turnaround, but just our service to the buildings on their needs for supplies and goods. So on this, one of our goals was to really quickly respond to the purchase orders. And a purchase order is how they place their order. It's our promise to pay that we will complete that order. So for the 2021 school year, we were averaging 4.45. I'm very happy to say for this year, we're 4.45 days is our turnaround time from the beginning when they submit it through the whole approval process. For this year, we're at 2.88 days, so very excited about that, that we're being able to be responsive and get the needs to the students quickly. Another win is I've been working with the principals on how to cascade information about their budgets to their staff and to their community. And with Principal Anderson's request, she wanted a report that she can put into her SMORE. So I wanted to create a report that kind of stimulated something I share with the board so that information could be understood across multiple platforms. So you'll see here, this is as of today. Her instruction budget is $33,500, and as of today, she spent 55% of that. And this is directly related to serving students, teaching students. And then her supports budget, which is $15,750, she has spent 48.57 of that. And our goal is to use this every month for every building so that they can cascade that information. So we will have the board reports, and then we'll break it out individually for each building too.
Is that for the entire school year? So where should we be on that as far as a percentage of spent?
Great question. This is not including encumbrance. This is just year-to-date spent. Ideally, I would say by the end of February, they should be about 75%
Okay.
spent.
So it's just, yeah, year-to-date,
Yeah,
hard dollars
year-to-date. And I
to,
didn't
compared
put
to year-to-date
encumbrance up.
budget. Perfect, thank you.
Yep. And in the next 30 days, our action plan, I also want to talk about, we're working with our budget. I'm also considering our goal number 1. We are planning on how to improve our collaboration throughout the district. My goal is to get more people involved, to have their voice, have their knowledge of what their buildings needs and how it should be allocated. And so Superintendent Carpenter and I are working on how we're going to do that and how we're going to share that information with the Budget Committee and the board. And I am continuing to work on my department website. So that's from my pillar report. Now going into the financial reports for December 31st. Our month-to-date revenue was $2.7 million. We did get our final big property tax in December, so that's the $610,000. And then our expenditures are $2.7 million. Our year-to-date revenue is $29,679,000, and our year-to-date expenditures is $13.7 million. So our total projection for revenue is $40.7 million. Our expenditures are $34.8 million, and that's going to give us an ending fund balance of $5.8 million. So our projected general fund revenue by funding source, you can still see here our state funding is our major contribution at 63%. And then our local services such as property taxes and local revenues such as sporting fees is 7.1 million. And then our beginning fund balance is at 18% at 7.2 million. So this is comparison to last year at this time. And I do want to make a little point out on this. At the very bottom, you can see I highlighted in blue. And if you look at the gray section, you will see that we were adding back 1.4 million. That was our projection. So we were projecting to have just over 1 million more in revenue than expenditures last year at this time. This year at this time, we're projected to spend down 1.4 million. So we're projecting to have more expenditures than revenues. Any questions on that?
Christina, where is that additional spend down reflected?
Where is it reflected? It's reflected, if you'll remember last year, the board did approve for us to increase the instructional expenditures for the additional teachers. And so that's, and just the overall expenses. We've had higher contracts this year for full staffing. So those things right now are raising our projections of
Okay,
expenditures.
thank you. I know we talked about it before,
Yes,
but I
yes.
just couldn't
No, great
remember, so.
question. I don't mind going back.
Thank you.
This is our budget to actuals. You see, it looks a little different. I did take the board's requests and I added a column to it. So the blue is our budget, the red is our year-to-date, and the green is our year-to-date plus encumbrance. So you'll see in instruction, our budget is 23.3 million. Year-to-date, we spent 36% of that, but if you include our encumbrances, we've spent 89%. And encumbrances are our POs, our promise to pay. That's pretty much our projection. It's not our projection, because my projection, I estimate we are going to get more POs throughout the year. So this is just what is in our system right now. Our support services is 12.2 million. We spent 42% of that year to date, and our year to date plus our encumbrances are 88.5%. Any questions on this graph? Okay.
Well, one just question
Yes.
clarification. So on the encumbrance side, so like instruction, because there's some things that we anticipate we're going to spend that are not included in the encumbrance, but what it is in the encumbrances is like the salaries we know we're going to pay, the
Yes.
benefits we know we're going to pay.
Yes.
Right? That's what
And
gets us
any
closer
PO
to
that
that.
we have
That
in
we know
place.
we have, but there
Yes.
will be increased substitute costs that we don't know that we could have, or
Correct.
other things that
And
we need to pay.
supplies that we haven't purchased, or, because come closer to the end of the year, they'll look and make their final purchases, and so we'll have increased POs at that time.
Perfect, thank you.
And this report is our, by major object. And you'll see here, again, our year-to-date revenues is 29.6 million. Our year-to-date expenditures is 13.7 million. Really comparison to last year, we have no, everything's averagely going up. Our purchase services is down a little bit compared to last year at this time. So I am interested into that. But nothing else is really shocking to me in that. Our year-to-date expenditures by major object, you'll see here that 93% are fixed or contracted costs, which is our salaries, our associated payroll costs, and our purchase services year-to-date. So that leaves about 7% that are supplies and other items that we're spending that are not contracted. And then now onto an enrollment report. You kind of got a little brief update for that. But Clackamas River is at 406. It increased 1 from last month and increased 21 from last year at this time. River Mill is at 422. That's no change from last month, but it's down 18 from last year at this time. Estacada Middle School is at 397. It's an increase of 1 and a decrease of 8 from last year at this time. And Estacada High School is at 507, which is an increase of 9 and from last month, and an increase of 10 from last year at this time. So overall, right now, the Estacada School District is at 1,732, which is an increase of 11 from last month at this time, and an increase of 5 from last year at this time.
Do we not have a number for day 10? Has that been NAs the whole time and I just missed it?
I think so.
Okay, I'll go back and look at it.
I'll look at that. And then Summit Learning Center, I was able to get it broken down by grade this month, and I'll try to keep doing that for future. They're at 1,302, which is an increase of 23 from last month, but still a decrease of 155 from last year at this time. And we believe that's because people returned to their schools now that they were in person. That is great that they are up from last year, but they are still below the cap at this time. So I just wanted to let you know that. And that puts us total as a district at 3,034. Any questions on that?
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
It's on the budget to actuals and the community service and other uses. There's 775,000. That's just kind of in a working
the
budget.
budget.
Yeah,
That-
it's just kind of in working area. Is there a plan to use?
That's
That-
generally our transfers that we do will be a big part of that.
Okay.
And we generally do that and we'll talk about that more in May and June and
Okay.
make a plan for that. And then you'll see that in June.
It's athletics, food, and transportation.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. Great question. And then here's the graph, and I'm excited if you can see the little, we are starting to climb, so that is good news. We are up from where's last year? We're up from where we were last year, so we finally met that. And that's all I have for you. Any questions?
Yeah, just to clarify for me, your purchase order lead time that you had, less than 3 days. Now, is that from the time the requisition is created to the time that the purchase order is placed?
Yes, because we have an approval process we go through.
Right.
The principal approves it, our accounts payable person approves it, I approve it, and then it goes back for a PO.
So does if it's a $5 item, does it have to go through all those approvals, or?
Yes.
It does, okay,
Every requisition has to go through the approval process.
okay.
Yeah.
Allows us to hold each dollar accountable to the taxpayer.
Well, I always called them bean counters.
And the great part about that is allowing the building administrators and department leaders to really be responsible for their budget. And I work with them on that.
Now, are you seeing a lot of shortages in products that you order now?
Yes, that is definitely, I can say one of the biggest areas probably is nutrition services, and Director Ware could probably talk more about that, but that is a huge area. And there are some other areas, technologies, we've found some, slow delays. I'm not sure quite about on the supply side, but in most areas, it is a little slower than normal and a little higher in price.
That was my next question. As far as contractually, what do we have in place to cover that? Like food services, perfect example. We've got contracts in place, right? For food services.
Yeah, so we're just working with them to get the supplies on that. The more of the higher priced or more on the, I would say like technology has higher prices. Like some of the little things like pens and pencils, they have the higher prices. I'm not sure that that's necessarily on the food service side. The more problem there on that side is just getting the items.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right, thank you very much. Next up, superintendent's report.
And Mike, maybe I could ask you just to, unless it works. Yep, it
He's
works.
working now.
Great, thank you. I would like to first of all thank our senior leadership team for sharing and co-leading the execution of our district goals and our cycles of improvement. I was pleased with the rollout tonight. And I want to make the board aware, as we do know, that there is a lot of disruptions right now out there, from COVID, from staffing needs, covering for staffing problems, student social and emotional concerns, health and safety changes, and then politics. And one of the things that I'm proud of our school district right now is we as a school district are not using those major disruptions as the reasons why we can't execute our mission, vision, and values. These are factors that need to be in the context in which we need to lead and execute our mission, vision, and values, and use that as our compass to drive our results and our outcomes. And so I'm pleased with that, and I'm pleased with the reports of our directors today to support that. Attached here is our district's 2022 scorecard in direct alignment with our strategic plan. So this is year 4 of 5 of our strategic plan, and we are on a great track of fulfilling our commitment to our community. We've made some incredible improvements, as the board has been able to follow throughout the last 3 years, and we are continually committed to continuous improvement of our systems. So this scorecard will be displayed publicly so that our community can transparently follow along, support us in our improvement journey, and then ultimately hold us accountable for achieving the outcomes determined by our constituents. The number one thing that is in my email right now that our board is also aware of is we're receiving a lot of communications regarding school closures and concerns about Estacada schools and staffing level. And I want to say first and foremost that I too am very concerned about our staffing levels and the prevalence of the Omicron variant inside our school system. We're having more students and adult employees test positive each and every single day. Losing even one employee to a 5-day isolation period impacts our systems and ultimately our service to our students and our families. So right now, each night and each morning, our team is monitoring our employee attendance. And as of now, we are doing okay. Since the return from winter break, we are averaging 8.3% of our workforce is reporting in absent daily. Our substitute fill rate for the year is 64% for classroom teachers and a dismal 26% for classified employees. However, this last week was our worst when we needed it the very most. Only 44% of our teacher absences were filled by substitutes. Tomorrow, which is in front of a big 3-day weekend, we already have 26 absences reported, 12 of which are unfilled. 3 are teachers and 9 are paraeducators, leading to a 40% fill rate for tomorrow. The reason why we are remaining open right now as a school district is due to the tremendous and selfless work of our employees. Right now, they are putting the team first and covering for each other. So a question that we're being asked is, will we close our schools? And right now, as your superintendent, I am confident that we will not have to do so at this moment. At this moment, we are not close to the threshold of needing to close, but that's subject to change at any moment. It's important to note that our staff is committed to keeping our schools open, and so is the district and the board itself. We are committed to keeping our schools open. I do not anticipate that we will ever need to close down an entire district. The only example that I see that would require us to completely close is the mass loss of our bus fleet and or our bus drivers to equitably get all kids to attend our schools. It is more likely that if we do not have the staffing levels to safely supervise our students, then we would temporarily transition, like a virtual snow day, that specific building on that specific day, or until our staffing levels were to become available for us to safely supervise our students. We do have plans in place, but we have some weaknesses in the current plans that exist if we do have to close a school. We are working with our school association and soon to start working with language so that our school district can pivot and move faster to meet the needs of our families, as well as keep the school days continuously going. If we were to have to close a school, we would need to add additional days to the end of the school year to meet the state requirements and thresholds of the annual seat hour time. And so right now we're trying to work hard to be able to pivot quick so that we can keep our learning going without losing any days. Lastly, and this one's going to be kind of fun, if I can get this thing to work again, Mike, which it's not, but I think you'll enjoy this. I want to start having conversations with the community about the future of Estacada schools as we emerge from this pandemic. And so what we need to do is we're required to compete right now. The thing I'm seeing coming from this, from post-pandemic, is we're going to be required to compete against charter schools, and we're going to see a large rise, I believe, in parent choice, which means that we, coming out of this pandemic, need to continue to produce a quality experience that our community chooses to send their children to the Estacada School District. And the same goes when it comes to our responsibility to recruit and retain our talented employees. So here's an interesting fact for you. To date, our teacher specialist workforce is comprised of 8.5% baby boomers. We are 30% Generation X. We are 53% millennial. And we are 7% Generation Z. These are children born in 1996. that are now employees of the Estacada School District in educating our children. And so it's important as a school district, as we develop, to develop a culture that meets the different needs of each generational employee. And so as I aggressively read and research how to develop an organizational culture that reflects the newer generations of employees that we're having a part of our team, the calendar and the work year are two major components as we seek to meet the needs of that demographic. So looking at private and corporate industries right now, those who can work remotely are preferring to work remotely. Obviously, being a classroom teacher does not allow for that opportunity. But there are some things that do exist that I would like to lead in a conversation with our community about how we can make Estacada a more desirable place for employment to meet the needs of tomorrow's educator. So we recently surveyed, 88% is who took the survey, of all certified teachers, specialists, guidance counselors, etc. And here's what the results are, which are quite interesting. You'll be happy to hear that through this pandemic, the first question asked was, how satisfied are you with working for the Estacada School District? And believe it or not, 8 out of 10 employees said that they loved working here for the Estacada schools, which makes me very pleased of the work we're doing and the mission and vision that we're carrying out. When you break this down in terms of teacher voice, how are we doing in terms of collecting teacher voice and making decisions based on the voice of our hardworking employees? And you can see that 80.3% shared that they were satisfied that the district was effectively collecting their voice and utilizing that voice when it comes to big decision making. Breaking that down, 92% of our secondary teachers say yes and agree, and 74.1% of our elementary teachers, which is fantastic. And that 92% is surprising and astronomical, making that 74% look small, but that 74% is also very impressive, given the context.
Well, and with that too, it's 74% satisfied, but only 3.4% not satisfied.
That's correct.
Big chunk in there that also is no opinion.
Yep, absolutely. And so pleased with how our teachers are responding, thank you, to that teacher voice. Here's something that's loud and clear in our face that is going to require the school board, its leader, and the school district's leadership to think outside the box to meet the needs of a workforce that's very overwhelming. 95% of our certified teachers would like the school district to find innovative ways to promote more opportunities for them to work remotely. Now, obviously, that can't be done when we're rolling up our sleeves and grinding out algebra in the general education classroom. But I do think there's some opportunities where we might be able to explore some innovative ways to support the needs of our employees as we try to meet these post-pandemic and in the new educational school year. So another thing that's pretty loud and clear, our employees had the opportunity last year through virtual, hybrid, in-person, and the various different models of education we offered last year to our community. We were in a 4-day school week. Now that we've returned back to a 5-day school week, I've had the opportunity to ask our teachers which did they prefer more. Overwhelmingly, 84.6% of our classroom teachers prefer a 4-day student week with full days on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and then Friday with an opportunity potentially to work with some of our most underserved kids or kids who need the intervention the most, time for our professional learning communities, and then ultimately time to provide feedback and time to just plan for the following week. And so breaking this down, I wanted to know a little bit more about who was this, and obviously 84.6% is overwhelming, so you don't need to break down the demographics too much to know that everybody supports this. That being said, I did want to know how many people from inside the district who work for us versus people who commute outside of our district and where they stand. And the reason why I asked that question is because our employees who live in the district now no longer have a kid going to school on Friday. Does that impact their choice? And at the end of the day, you will see that it does not. Okay? Another question when we think about working and retaining with our workforce is, what does a balanced school year look like? Obviously, as we talk about social emotional health, fatigue, burnout, and some of the other things that millennials, Generation Z, and other demographics are talking about when it comes to a desirable work spot, there are new innovative things out there called a balanced year, where you add potentially a week in the fall as a fall break. You continue with your traditional holiday breaks. You either add a week to spring break, or you add a week somewhere in May just to break it up a little bit. The consequence of a balanced year is obviously that school year goes to the end of June in this example. The benefit is you have kids who are gone for summer less, and so you're able to mitigate some of that summer slide as the turnaround time is a little bit quicker. As you can see, when asking this question, it's a 53% favor the traditional and 46% are in favor of the balanced. It's close enough for us to start having deeper conversations about what this could potentially look like from a balanced year perspective. To break it down by generation, you can see that the baby boomers favor the traditional year 60-40. Our Gen Xers are 52% to 47% for the traditional year. But here's what's important. Our millennials, which is the largest part of our workforce, favor the balanced year over the traditional year. And then, very surprisingly, 100% of our Gen Zers favor the traditional year. And of course, when you see this data, it requires you to want to ask more questions. My hypothesis of this 100% is they have more spunk, and so they feel like they can just grind it out. Let's go. And we see that in the classroom as well. But anyways, interesting information. Now, the reason why I share that with you is because now is the time for us to start thinking outside the box about what the future of public education looks like. And I want the Estacada School District to be able to create a product that meets the needs of talented employees, that allows us to recruit talented employees, but also meets the need of the community and what that looks like. So this is just the beginning of the data. We'll be collecting classified employee data starting next Tuesday, and then we're going to engage in a bigger conversation with our parents and our community about what the future of Estacada schools looks like after that. I have asked Director Johnson and Vice Chair Shibahara to join me in a committee that we'll begin putting together with a vast representation of different groups to help us in this decision of where we move forward. But ultimately, this decision comes back to you, the Executive School Board of Directors, and it's important that the school calendar and days that we put together reflects the needs of our community. I just wanted to start prepping you for conversations that we're going to start having with our community as we try to stay moves ahead as we work through this.
I've got a question, if I may.
Fire away.
If you look at a balanced year plus 4-day work week, in my mind, that's saying year-round school.
It's close to that. Yep, it's closer to a year-round school. However, there are some things that prevent us from wanting to have year-round school, and that would include school in July and August. One, because of our inability to pass any type of construction or capital bonds, our schools are really hot in July and August. And so we're trying to, and when it gets really hot, it really does have an impact on teaching and learning. We also know that families traditionally have planned vacations during that time. We know that we're still an agrarian community where haying and some of those other things are very important. And it's also very important for families and kids to obtain summer jobs so they can have money to do the things they want to do. And so I am not for a year-round school calendar. I am, however, open to a conversation of how we could potentially lengthen that school year, but still hang on to some of the traditional values that are important in our community, like fair. So 2 more things, and this will be a lot quicker. As many of you know, you've seen that Oregon, on Oregon news outlets, that Oregon has completed its redistricting of boundaries for representation down in Salem. Last year, the entire 750 square mile Estacada School District was solely in District 18, which was current Minority Speaker of the House, Christine Drazen. We have a great relationship with Speaker Drazen, and she's been a great advocate for the Estacada community. However, with the redrawing of boundaries, the northeast corner, and I mean super northeast corner, like Timberlake Job Corps, places that we can't even access because the fire still hasn't closed.
Southeast.
Southeast, sorry. Yeah, okay, southeast. Are you sure that that's southeast?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Southeast is now a part of District 57, and District 57 is represented by Greg Smith, Republican out of Heppner. So most of Area 57 is the Mid-Columbia area from Umatilla, Morrow, Wasco, and obviously we share, our school district goes up to the Warm Springs Indian Reservation, and then Madras takes over from there. But now our side of the reservation is now a part of our school district as well. I met with Representative Smith today, and I'm confident, and it's kind of nice to know that we now have two representatives down in Salem that will advocate for the values of our Estacada community. So just wanted to share that with you. We're seeing other people now. And then last but not least, this month is Board Recognition Month. I would say in my very, very short experience in public education, there has never been a tougher time to be a school board member. You guys are making a lot of important decisions under a lot of tremendous pressure. And I think the Estacada School Board is doing that well. We typically get gear to appreciate throughout the year. We've gotten umbrellas for you as well. But this is Board Appreciation Month, so I wanted to make sure that you at least had a badge of honor to place on your wall. I thought about getting tattoos for everybody, but nonetheless, I just wanted to share my appreciation and thank you for being there to support me as we make some very critical decisions. But we always keep Estacada, its community, and its children first. So that's your superintendent's report, and thank you for your service.
All right. Thank you, Superintendent Carpenter. Any questions, concerns, not concerns, questions or comments? All right, we're moving on. Excuse me. Excuse me. Item F, reports and presentations. So tonight we have the Clackamas ESD Local Services Plan being presented by Superintendent Didway. So welcome, Superintendent Didway.
Great. Yeah, thank you very much. We are really excited to be here tonight, and thank you for welcoming us. I'm Larry Didway, and I'm the superintendent for Clackamas ESD. And with me here tonight also is Clackamas ESD board member John Iman, and I think he's probably a familiar face. He's been to these presentations a time or two. And this is our annual meeting that we come to share with you and present to you our local service plan, which is going to outline the coming year for service to all 10 of our school districts in the Clackamas ESD region. We also have provided you with two other documents in addition to the local service plan. This is the local service plan. I think you have it electronically too. But we also provided you with an individual district report as well as copies of the reports from our other component school districts. And last but not least, we've provided you with an annual report that we'll talk about a little bit more later. But before I talk about the local service plan and its process, I just want to start with a few thank yous that are very sincerely held. The first of all, or the first of those would go to Superintendent Ryan Carpenter. And he is a valued member of our regional superintendents group. And as he has already shared with you and talked about, he is serving in a very dynamic and demanding time. And there's no doubt that we have valued his contributions to that team and sharing his leadership during really unprecedented challenges. Ryan is a real strategic partner. He's a thought partner that I rely on frequently, and he's been particularly helpful in guiding our ESD's effort to expand our leadership and organizational development work. And Estacada has been a real great trailblazer in that area, and it's really fun to see the work happening here under Ryan's leadership. I also want to say thank you to Chair Ken Rydell. You may not know that he is also serving his last year on our ESD Budget Committee.
I didn't know it was the last year.
Congratulations.
I didn't mean to say that. I meant he was serving last year on our ESD Budget Committee. And we would really like to and hope that he will join our board members along with other school district board representatives again this coming year. So thank you for your service on that group as well. And then I also want to call out other professionals in the Estacada School District who are named on pages 10 and 11 in the local service plan, and we call those our advisory group members. And those individuals are meeting regularly with our regional colleagues and advisory groups that are facilitated by the ESD. And their commitment to collaborative work has been particularly critical this year, especially, and we very much appreciate their contributions. And then last but not least, I want to give a shout out to you, school board members, and of course our own ESD board member during Board Appreciation Month, and just acknowledge your public service and tell you how much it is valued and how much it makes a difference in terms of our ability to provide services, guidance, and as a superintendent myself, I can tell you how valuable it is to have that team behind you to keep you grounded to your community and to the community's values and needs, and better understand how we can all reach and serve the students and families that we're dedicated to providing educational opportunity to. So thank you very much for your service. And as a token of our appreciation for your service, we did leave with Superintendent Carpenter a packet of gift cards, not gift cards, sorry. Greeting cards. They're greeting cards.
No takebacks.
Yeah. That feature the art of students who were featured in the ESD art show. So just as a token of our appreciation. So again, we're going to talk about these three documents tonight. I'm going to start with the Clackamas ESD District Local Service Plan for 22-23. That's here for your review and your approval. The other two documents are just for your information. The local service plan reflects our productive partnership with all 10 of our school districts that we are dedicated to serving. It's a comprehensive review of all of the ESD's services. It begins by outlining the resolution services. These are services that are provided to all school districts regardless. Those include areas of special education, technology, data, teaching and learning support, as well as direct revenue that comes directly to the Estacada School District that can be applied to ESD services of your choice. It also covers grants and contract services. These are funding streams that are coming from multiple different sources, and some of those affect all school districts, some of those affect just specific partner districts in a program, and some of those go right to the ESD to expand services to all of our service area. That covers mainly special ed, early learning, and technology, and teaching and learning services. And then last but not least, there's a newer area of service coming from ESDs across the state of Oregon, and that's providing technical and assistance support for the Student Success Act. And as you know, Oregon has significantly increased its investment through the Student Investment Account in public education, and ESDs are charged with providing support and technical assistance to school districts in developing and implementing those plans. There is, the local service plan is approved in advance by our Clackamas Chief Administrators Council, and that's a group consisting of our 10 local superintendents and the Clackamas Community College president. And we also then submit that to our Clackamas ESD Board of Directors, and we bring that here for tonight for your review and approval. The other document, your report card here, or fiscal year review, provides overall cost of services that are delivered by the ESD and highlights some of the key services that we've provided. Your print packet includes a report for all districts, but there are a few Estacada highlights I would just point out. More than $1.8 million in total services were provided to the Estacada School District, and more than $600,000 in revenue was funneled directly to you. This work represents vibrant partnerships to create new and more inclusive early learning experiences for young children, to improve STEM learning opportunities, improve support for multilingual learners, provide special education services to students with complex needs, support curriculum development, and maintain data system security. We are hopeful that the format of this report provides more context for the many ways the Estacada School District and the Clackamas ESD work together to serve students, educators, and families, but we'd really welcome your feedback on how we can make that report even more useful to you in the future. And then last but not least is the annual report that looks like this. And again, that's an informational item that we bring to you tonight. And it really is providing information about the overall impact of the Clackamas ESD in our region. It shares using data and stories and smaller nuggets of information, just a comprehensive view of the work that we are doing in our area. And we hope that this is useful to you, and we would welcome your feedback on making that more useful as well. And with that, I will pause and see if you have any questions for me this evening.
Hear a lot of digesting, some of it. Another minute or so.
Say for the upcoming school year, what new services are being offered that are addition to, you mentioned ESSER services that are being provided, but are there new services or additional services that Estacada is able to utilize?
Services that Estacada hasn't previously used before?
Correct.
In this particular plan, no, it does not outline a new service that's available, although I would say that it looks like we have increased the amount of evaluation that we are doing for Estacada. And then I've got another increase in teaching and learning, but I'm not exactly sure what that's about, related to additional services. Are you?
No.
Okay. My hunch is that it has
And
to do with-
evaluation is special education evaluation.
What's that revenue to Estacada School District of $637,000? That's the biggest portion of that 982. What is that?
Those are dollars that the ESD receives that we send right to Estacada to use as at your discretion.
So those are dollars and cents that is actually given to us?
Yep.
And what are the, I mean, we can use that as our discretion?
Well, it's at your discretion for within the service scope that we provide. Yeah.
Well, I'm new to the school board, so I'm trying to learn.
Yeah. So ultimately, to see it kind of as a consortium a little bit, and so we pay into that to some extent with ESD services, and how we utilize the ESD services is primarily through the technology opportunities, a little bit in special education. We used to rely heavily on it, but as we moved more to an inclusive model, we don't need some of the special education services like we used to. And so ultimately, what Superintendent Didway is saying is we don't necessarily utilize all of our services. And so at the end of every year, we do receive some funds to reallocate as we see fit to do things.
Well, those are funds that we have put into the system, and now we didn't use them, so we're getting it back.
That's correct. And we budget that.
Yeah, that is in our budget.
Okay.
It's in our 200 fund revenue source.
Yep.
2,000 revenue source, yes.
And I think to your question, Director Johnson, two things that are on the menu that are available to us that we don't necessarily utilize is I believe now Westland, Wilsonville, and us used to be two school districts that didn't utilize Synergy, which is the prime student information system. We use PowerSchool. We were talking about that earlier. We use PowerSchool. I think Westland Wilsonville went to Synergy this last year. So we're the last school remaining not utilizing that student information system. That would be one thing we could do with that money to do that. And then also The Clackamas ESD has a lot of, I would call it outpatient educational spots. And so if there are students that the Estacada School District just can't support due to very unique circumstances of the child, the ESD has schools that ultimately allow us to send students there to receive a more specific type of educational experience, which we do send one child to right now.
And that's both the LEAP program that provides services for students usually with some pretty significant and multiple complex medical needs, and Heron Creek, which is a therapeutic program for students with significant social, emotional, and behavioral challenges.
Any other questions for Superintendent Didway? All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you for being
very
here.
much. We
thanks for coming out.
we appreciate the partnership, and it was great to learn more a little and hear a little bit about the report you got there. And I have to echo Superintendent Carpenter's awareness and leadership in the area of taking a look at the need to really pivot about our attitudes toward remote work and how we can be more responsive to a totally new generation of employee. It's something that all of our districts are going to need to be doing, and so I appreciate your leadership on that. And
Thank you.
And I'm also going to want to borrow that PowerPoint.
All right. You bet.
And count me in for the budget committee as well
Great.
again.
Okay.
So,
Thank
yep,
you
just
very much.
keep me in.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so next up is the audit report by Pauly Rogers. It's not Pauly Rogers.
I'm not, I'm bringing,
Well,
Oh, they're virtual.
yes.
okay, if you would like to, if you would mind, Chair Wright, I'll just remind kind of the delay of, we have to make a transition after she talks.
Okay,
You guys will have to.
got it. All right.
Okay.
So we have an audit report by Pauly Rogers. So Tara, is it Tara or Tara?
It's Tara.
Welcome. And from a technology standpoint, there's a little bit of a delay, so we'll have to turn audio off and on. So we promise not to stare too bad while we're waiting through that delay, but there will be some of those awkward delays that happen. So thank you for joining us tonight. We're excited to hear your report, so I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and fellow Board of Directors, for having me here this evening. My name is Tara Camp. I am a partner with Pauly Rogers and Company, and we are the financial statement auditors of the Estacada School District. And I'm here this evening to report on the June 30, 2021 financial statement audit and results. So what I'll do is primarily go over the governing body letter, and that is a nice letter that summarizes everything we're required to communicate with you. And then I'd be happy to take questions on any of that or our audit process. So on page 1 of the letter, we cover the purpose of the audit. And for the school district, that purpose is threefold. We perform the financial statement audit, and that is where we test and assess the financial statements created by management in order to determine if they're fairly stated. Secondly, we perform the Oregon Municipal Audit Law Minimum Standards audit, and that is a compliance audit required of all governments in the state of Oregon, where we're looking at various laws and regulations in order to determine if the district is in compliance. And lastly, we perform the federal single audit, and that is where we test specific grants on a rotating basis year to year and look at compliance with those federal dollars, because there's always a lot of strings attached to those monies. And on page 2 of the letter, we cover the results of the audit, and the results for the Estacada School District are very good. For the financial statement audit, we issued an unmodified opinion on the financial statements. That's a clean opinion with no reservations. For state minimum standards, we found no issues requiring comment. For federal awards, we found no issues of noncompliance and no question costs. And we had no separate management letter issued along with the report. So overall, excellent results. On page 3, we note that we encountered no difficulties in performing and completing our audit. And we had no disagreements with management about accounting or auditing issues. And lastly, in the letter on page 4 and 5, we cover some new accounting standards coming out. And these are very good to be aware of because they will change future reports for the district and also may require additional time in the business office to get these implemented. So we'll definitely work with management to ensure those are implemented on a timely basis as they should. So overall, excellent results, and I'd be happy to take any questions if you have any.
It's an unmodified response and no issues found. It's apparent there's not a whole lot of questions that come with that. So I did have one question. As you said, there are some changes in some of the practices moving forward. So is there anything that we should be aware of or that the district has been made aware of that may change how things work in the future so that they are prepared for those?
Yep, absolutely. In the letter on page 4 and 5, we summarize the accounting standards that affect future periods for the district. So the big one is GASB 87 on leases. It completely changes accounting for leases. And it's one of the biggest changes to governmental accounting in several years. So that's a big one that's going to take a lot of time and effort to implement. And the others are more minor, but still could affect the district. So it's good to be aware of.
Do we treat Summit Learning Charter as a lease, or is it just a revenue stream with the charter school?
Revenue stream with the charter school. A lease would be
Buses, when we used to lease buses?
equipment, like technology, if you lease technology.
One recommendation that Pauly Rogers has pointed out, at least for 3 consecutive years now in our relationship of them looking into their books, is they are recommending that we need to increase at least one separation of duty. According to their recommendations for the last 2 or 3 years, we still have too few people ultimately who are touching the money. And that was a decision that I need to own as 4 years ago when I came into this office, as we tried to be fiscally responsible. I was the one that made the reduction, ultimately diminishing some of the workforce inside the district office. But as we continue to try to improve community trust in our handling of money, one of the things I'd like to work with our school board, not tomorrow, but throughout this year and in anticipation for the beginning of next school year, is potentially adding that additional person back, just so we continue to have that one more degree of separation to make sure that the taxpayers' money is truly being safeguarded appropriately.
And just to clarify, Tara, that's a recommendation, but not a risk that you guys have identified that's creating a problem at this point in time.
It's a risk for sure, but it doesn't rise to the level of significant deficiency or material weakness that would be reportable to you. Those are things that lower level risks that we discuss with management. But I think it's also good to know in this environment that we're in, there's so much more work for business offices in general, with state money and federal money and a lot of extra strings attached and compliance issues. And so we've been seeing in general, this is not specific to Estacada, but like a lot of strain in business offices. So it's always good to be aware of the extra workload that comes in each year because of all of the additional monies and the new standards. Those incrementally can add up to significant amounts of work. And so that's just something that's always good to be aware of on a yearly basis.
Great, thank you. Any other questions from an audit perspective? Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us tonight. I will ask Director Martinez, just because I keep forgetting to ask her. So Director Martinez, any questions that you have?
Thank
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Tara.
Thank you and have a good evening.
All right, on to item G, discussion. So pillar committee meetings, so I will turn this over to Superintendent Carpenter, I think, to kick this off, and then we can discuss as a group.
Yeah, and I'll be very brief, but obviously as we execute our continuous improvement work, we wanted to conduct 30-day improvement cycles by pillar, and we wanted our school board members to be a part of, lead, and oversee those 30-day cycles of improvements via the pillar. I want to thank all of you for the time and commitment as we've really spent all of last year, every 30 days, making sure that our pillars were on track. We were holding ourselves accountable to our community that these things were being done, and it was being done in a visible and transparent way on YouTube for any community member concerned about our progress towards the strategic plan and how that was going. Obviously, we've run into some barriers as to, redundancy in the reporting, the why behind how effective this is. And so I kind of just wanted to open up, because I've had the opportunity to work with each and every single one of you individually about the purpose of that and what direction we'd like to move those pillar committee meetings in. And so a lot of people have had a lot of different and great insights, but they've been different. And so I think this is a great opportunity for our board to hold a discussion, to talk about the future of those pillar reports, the frequency of those pillar reports, and then ultimately at the end of the day, you get to determine how much further we want to go with these. So,
Great, thank you. I'll open it up to the group. I have a couple comments, but I'll save those. I'm not going first this time.
Okay.
So I'll open it up to the rest of the group.
Well, like I said before, I really enjoy the two pillars that I have attended. I don't know if they need to be once a month. Only, my opinion is that maybe go quarterly, and then the opportunity to call them sooner if there is a problem or if we see a direction that it's going that we're not happy with.
thank you for that feedback.
Will was raising his hand over there.
I was waiting for you, Ben.
It looked like Vice Chair Shibahara was
I was
getting
gonna,
closer to
I
the
was gonna go
microphone,
for
so
it, but
there
if
you
you
go.
two are gonna duel it
You're
out,
up.
I'll let you
You're
go.
up.
Go ahead,
Well,
Vice Chair.
I just want to go back to originally as a board member, I mean, we used to get assigned like either a school or maybe a project to be a part of or like some kind of committee. And I feel like this was kind of one of our shifts from that assignment, ability to get engaged more at the, beyond just the school board meeting. So for me, I think I had some different expectations too of what I didn't realize I was just like monitoring and leading the pillar scorecard. I was thinking of more of the lower level engagement of, committee work and project work and, a little bit digging a little bit deeper into how can I help, in this particular area of the pillar. So to me, it felt redundant to get the same report on Mondays that I was getting in the school board meeting.
Yep.
And I didn't, feel like I was adding as much value, and so that's why I kept bringing it up. Like I'm not sure it's meeting my needs, what I was thinking I was going to be doing versus, and I feel like it was, a lot more time and work for those many pillar meeting
Leaders.
attendees.
Yep.
And I would echo that too. I think that one of the ideas I remember specifically for the pillar engagement from board members was so that we would have like a subject matter expert on the board. That being said, I think we all agree to hear directly from the pillar leaders is vitally important, and we don't want to replace that with a board member giving that update.
Correct.
But then that need for that subject matter expert really isn't as high as it was, I think, when we had the first vision of what this looked like.
Yep.
So I do feel as though from a pillar leader, they're putting in more work just to have a meeting with us, to then turn around and be here to present on Thursday. So from that standpoint, I don't want to put more on their plate. I do like Director Walper, your idea of is it that kickoff of the 90-day cycle, what was learned, where are we going, type of a thing, to get maybe the bigger picture, or, you know, the more into the weeds, I don't know, but I think we're all pretty much on the same page, but I'd love to hear from others that what we're doing right now, I don't think is necessarily the most effective use of the pillars' time, or frankly, the board's time. So even though we're all happy to be there and help in any way that we can.
I agree with that, Ken, completely. You know, the meetings are great, but I also don't want to add another 1 hour meeting to your staff's day and, you know, focus in on moving a score up a half a point, you know, in a 1 hour meeting. I'd be more interested in the meat of the projects and the issues and where do you need help, and, you know, try to come in and be somewhat of an SME from a board standpoint if you need something on the side, but not exercise these folks too much. So.
Yeah, and I think.
The quarterly idea is nice
Excuse
too.
me.
With that.
And like you and I discussed before when I was with Christina and her pillar, I really enjoyed it, but it really wasn't anything different than what she's produced today. And so if you get that once a month, I think that that's enough. And you can have your pillar meeting quarterly and go over. I'm a meats and potato guy. I want the bottom line, and I'm not interested in the fluff. So.
Director Martinez, do you have anything to add?
No, other than I think I'm I'm in agreement with, echoing what everybody is saying, their sentiment about, not adding additional time when it's not necessary. And, if we could get those quarterly reports from the pillar leaders, I think that should be sufficient for me, in my opinion, as well. So.
Has anyone asked the pillar leaders what they would like to see?
No, I wouldn't say that we have in general, because at the end of the day, they stand to serve the needs of what the board would like. I think if I could synthesize their response to, is similar to that of yours. They too are working hard, like you say, and are producing to all of you the same things that they're producing here on the school board meeting. And I think they're also very busy people, and I do think it could be time better served in other directions. And I think they would agree with that. I think they do enjoy the relationship that they get to build with their school board member. And I do think it's very critical that they're seen publicly out in the community, demonstrating and showing evidence of the very intentional improvement work that we're doing throughout our organization and systems. But there are different ways we can accomplish that moving forward.
Like, for example, when a contract issue comes up or a seismic project comes up, Mike will pull on me or other contracts type board members to get involved versus, maybe having the theater of this meeting isn't as necessary.
But those are two different things. So those are us asking because you're an industry expert versus you being a part of the My School is Clean pillar. Those are two different things.
Okay.
But I will go back and say, when we kicked this off, being involved at the level that we were was helpful in getting us a better understanding of what are the dashboards, how do we measure it, how are we working it. So I don't necessarily think it was the wrong thing to do. I think that activity has kind of run its course, and now we need to pivot to a different activity. What that looks like, I don't know.
Will the pillar meetings still go on without us?
No.
But they still meet as a pillar.
Oh, we
During the
meet
day.
weekly to go over pillars, and our pillar leaders round weekly/daily with our principals, vice principals, and everyone who has goals inside of that. Yeah, so the work absolutely goes on. And then at the end of a 90-day PDSA cycle, we report that out to the entire community of the whole scorecard and our progress towards that. Yeah, there's a lot that still happens.
And maybe it's something that we've all been on the board for, well, John's the newest member of 8 months, but as far as onboarding new members and getting them involved with the finances or the student success part of it or inclusive practices, you could kind of handhold them and say, hey, we're having this meeting to give you an idea of what the inclusive practices really means at the ground level, or how we go through our finances at the ground level.
Yeah.
And keep those options available. Or if we're stumbling through something and I don't understand something, inclusive
Yeah.
practices, why we're doing something differently than we have, you can grab me and say, okay, hey, why don't you sit down at this 30-day or 90-day
Yeah.
cycle meeting and just still have that option to be involved if everything aligns.
Well, and it's important to remember, though, all of these pillars and all of this is not for inclusive practices or contracts. It's only tied to the strategic plan, only. And so these pillar meetings and everything else is the board's number one responsibility, and that is to check in and understand and be aligned with making sure that the school district is executing the mission, vision, value, and action strategies of the strategic plan. And so the why behind that of the pillar meetings was to meet monthly so that board members could be attuned to what's occurring on the strategic plan.
I think that the
But we're doing
change
that
is we're
here.
getting that already here,
You are,
right?
that's correct. So it's happening twice,
Right.
and it's all the same.
Right.
Yep. Both publicly displayed on YouTube.
Exactly. So then
Yeah.
there's your public presence.
Yep.
Of those pillar leaders.
Yep.
And then I go back to, so then I feel like we're checking that box of,
Yep.
working on our strategic plan.
Yep.
Making progress and checking in regularly, and, maybe we do a deeper dive on a quarterly basis, but I still feel that we're missing something that we used to have when we were tied more closely to something, and that's where I think the project work or the committee
Right.
work or special things come up, and, the turf, you've got a subgroup of folks, the calendar and,
Yeah,
these different-
and that's where that exists.
and that's where I love investing a little bit more time
Right.
and volunteering my time as a board member to be a part of those committees.
Yeah.
It feels like that adds value, where
Sure.
maybe this current
Sure.
structure isn't adding as much value.
Yeah, it's just important that I keep you in those four that we've discussed, and not anywhere outside of those four, because that's when trouble occurs.
Oh, you mean, yes, of course.
Yep.
You can't have more than 3 board members.
No, I mean, strategic plan, evaluating the superintendent, policy, and budget. That's where I want
Okay.
you to be.
So where would
So-
I get information, being on the facilities pillar, right? Talking about moving my school's clean point for an hour versus talking about what's coming up, what contracts do we have? How can I be more educated to help a
Right.
board member not in this meeting?
Sure, that would be in the board, the report here, and conversations with me and/or Mike, if you choose to.
So then.
That's where I would feel like I'd get more value out of it.
For sure,
Spending his
because
time
it's
or your
more
time
fun.
is,
Yeah,
understanding what's coming, what we've got now.
right.
So.
Sure, this is why we're having the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
conversation.
So let's say we're going to replace the website and May's going to put together a subcommittee of folks.
Yep,
If I were asked to participate in that committee,
yeah,
I know we've done this in the past as a bond, but I was an observer and not a participant.
Right.
I was representing the board.
correct.
And is that the same thing because it doesn't directly tie to one of those 4?
That's correct, because ultimately it would be a decision that you would make. The website, I would imagine, you would be asked to be a board representative on that committee, but you ultimately wouldn't be a decider in that because the website will cost more than $100,000, which will ultimately be a purchase that will come to you for approval. But can you be on the committee and help out? Absolutely.
Where we drew that line separately, or previously, was when you were part of a committee, when it came time for that committee to vote on what they were gonna bring
Right,
to the
that's what-
board,
that's-
that's when we
That's
did
what I'm
not
talking
vote.
about.
Okay.
But up
so-
until
so
that time,
I can
we're-
participate.
Absolutely.
But then when they go to vote on
If
which
they vote.
which software they're going to choose. Because
Correct.
it's free, which I hope there's an RFP process, all that stuff.
Yep,
I withdraw myself
just from that part.
Just from the
from
vote.
that part.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so yes, you absolutely can be involved in those things. No different than the calendar committee, which
Well,
I've
and
asked
just
you.
like the contract conversation.
Absolutely. We would
So that's a
select
part of it.
industry experts for that, but I don't think that's what Joe is asking. I think
I
he
just
wanted.
thought it's like, the, you know, speaking for myself here, being with this pillar, it's like, I'd get pulled into a random meeting about how should we lay out the back 20.
We didn't pull you because you're a part of that pillar. We pulled you because you know what you're talking about.
So maybe that's where I got confused, was
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be up to speed on
Yeah.
that pillar.
Right.
Not just talking about is the school clean and what's the score. We
Yeah.
do that enough.
Yeah.
But
It's-
pillar is just that.
To me, the
school
pillar
clean,
was
The whole, yeah.
being up to date on all the topics related to the pillar,
Sure.
not just the one score.
And to be fair, inside the facilities pillar, you know, inside the strategic plan, there's actually like 4 things. And that's where you did talk about like our facilities master plan and upgrading and updating facilities. That was in there because that's strategy 2 and 3 of the strategic plan. When it comes to just apples and apples numbers comparison, my school is clean is the one thing we're using to determine the health of that pillar. But behind the scenes, we're putting keyless entry in things and we're doing things to upgrade safety and security, which is in the strategic plan, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Can you, I've only been to my pillar, so.
It's a
can you tell
great
me
pillar, though.
What's that?
It's a great pillar.
Yeah, it is. But my question is, I don't think we'd be having this conversation if it was high, but what is the public's attendance in those meetings?
It's surprisingly amazing. I mean, it's not edge of your seat, but usually over the course of time, there's usually 30 to 40 people who watch those pillar committee meetings. There's usually 8 or 9 that either watch it live and or just shortly after, and then over time, about 30 or 40 people watch it. Now, do they watch it from start to end? I'm not sure, but the views and the data would indicate that it's there. And the reason why I like that is because it doesn't matter if it's 10 people or 2 people or 40 people. Those are people who are seeing transparency in our school district towards the execution of the plan. But we're also not getting hammered by our community for not. And so,
So if we're getting good views, right, in
Yeah.
the world of viewing
Yeah.
meetings, could we, instead of just having the school board meeting as a whole recorded and available, can we also have the pillar reports separated out? So if somebody wanted to see updated facilities, they could watch the whole board meeting, or they could just go right over to that one and watch the facilities one. And that
Yep.
might also help with that, if we're not gonna have a separate meeting. We may lose some of those people if it's, I need to watch a 2.5-hour meeting, or I can watch a 30-minute meeting. That could
Sustainable Finances has 28 views, the last one. The Engaged Families and Communities has 14, 27 from Engaged Families, the one before that. So there are people watching.
People watching them.
And this is
About
not to be,
communication.
yeah, this is not to be argumentative, but one thing that we had in that bond feedback was, number 1 or 2 was trust around how we're sharing it. So I hear everybody, and I agree. I don't want to take time out of these busy staff member schedules, and if they're repeating information, I don't think it should be.
Yeah.
But if there's any chance that we're able to reach the public and show transparency in some of the ways that we can do it, I think that's still important that we do that.
The only thing that I'd like to add to it is if we do go to quarterly, we need to have the pillar reports and the agenda and everything timely, like on Monday prior to our board meeting. And Denise has been doing an awesome job on that lately. I really appreciate that. Because I like to look at it and prepare and write my notes and come in here with my gun loaded, you know?
Yes, figuratively speaking.
Don't we, I mean, we would still get our pillar reports every month, right?
At the school board meeting,
Yeah.
correct.
But then the quarterly would just be more of our
Yeah.
progress.
If we
a
do that.
More in-depth, yeah.
How about I propose this, just based on the feedback and to allow us to keep moving forward? Why don't we pause all pillar reports? Let's just move forward with the monthly pillar reports at the school board meeting. At the end of our 90-day cycle, we do if you've been here a while, a HASD type of thing, but really it's a results rollout conversation now. And then let's see how that goes, and if we feel like we need more or need to be a part of more, then we can circle back to this conversation. But I appreciate each and every one of you for sharing that honest feedback. And, you know, I also hear through this conversation that there are some people that would like to be a part of more individual specific actions to their liking, and I think I can find ways that meet those needs.
Well, and I think it was a good point, though, like with Joe getting pulled in, it wasn't just because he was that pillar person. So for example, I know I used the website thing, but.
You know what you're talking about
I
there.
do, but at the same time, if somebody was really interested and passionate about it, and it was something, you know, they really cared about, I think it would be okay to open the opportunity up to other members.
For sure.
But I guess I don't want us to get siloed too much either.
I completely agree with you 100%. It's just at some point,
Yes.
there becomes a discrepancy between you as the board member and
Right.
you as a parent and citizen who is just enthusiastic about
100%.
websites.
Need to put
Yeah.
a different hat on.
Yep.
Okay. So we're going to pause it for now. We'll look at the end of the next 90-day cycle and then maybe do a mini ASD
Yep.
type thing.
Yep.
Cool. All right, thank you,
Great
everybody.
conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, on to item H, hearing of citizens for action items only.
None.
We have none. All right, we're going to move on to action items. So the consent agenda includes a package of one or more items to be voted on as a unit. However, if any board member is not in favor of one or more agenda items and prefers to take separate action, request to the chair anytime prior to the vote, we'll remove that item for a separate vote. But before we go on to item one for the consent agenda, according to policy BBFA, I need to announce an actual conflict of interest, so I will not be participating, discussing, or voting on item one.
So I will take this.
Yep.
And do we have a motion?
Vice Chair Shibahara, move to accept the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Does anybody have any discussion? So then we will vote, and all those in favor, please raise your right hand. Can she hear me?
Director Johnson, can you hear, or Martinez, can you hear to vote?
Yes, I'm sorry,
Thank
it's,
you.
I get an
Item
echo,
J, to
sorry.
approve the Clackamas ESD local service plan.
Chair Rydell, I move to approve the 2021-2022 Clackamas ESD Local Service Plan.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Thanks for coming out and explaining and introducing yourself.
Congratulations on the new role.
Yeah.
Okay. No discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand.
Motion carries.
Item K, to approve the engineers to proceed with the GMGC method, River Mill Elementary.
Chair Rydell, I move to approve the WRK engineers to proceed with GMGC method for the River Mill Elementary seismic rehabilitation project.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. I'm assuming there's going to be some conversation, so if we can have Mr. Ware up to the hot seat, cool seat, front seat. So I'll ask for questions first, or if, Mike, you want to give just a quick rundown?
I will do my best. This is where I need my field experts, to be honest. CMGC process is a construction management general contractor method that allows the owner and allows our process when we go through the seismic rehabilitation project to bring on one of those general contractors or construction management early on during that design phase process. What that allows is it eliminates some risk to the district, reduces some costs overall at the end of the project, but also allows the owner, us, the Estacada School District, to be a part of that design, to have more of an impact and more influence during the process, especially at a size, a project of this magnitude.
How does this differ from the way the contract was designed for the middle school roof?
I cannot speak to that. I wasn't here at that time.
I think it's the same, we just have a better engineer this time.
I would have, I'm assuming that is to say, I came in towards the middle of it, but we did have our architect engineer on as our lead, but then we had a CMGC early on.
And I think, again, like that, with a project this scope, we'd like to probably utilize our board experts to help us just kind of oversee that.
If I can speak about we have formed an oversight committee with 2 board members as well as stakeholders from the Rivermill Elementary, our facilities department, and myself. We've met once, but we plan on meeting more as we get closer to more of this process, especially when we start procuring for a CMGC, which will be done by WRK Engineering, but again, ultimately decided by the board of directors who we choose.
And this is for work starting summer of 2023, right?
Yes, sir.
Is there a timeline from start to finish?
Yes, we provided a timeline at the last board meeting, so
that's
I can
fine.
definitely
Okay.
share that with Superintendent Carpenter. We extended it out to summer of 2023, only because of the timeline that we were faced and didn't want to rush a project of this size, of this value, making sure that we did it right with the design, as well as get the right contractors on board, going from there.
Throughout this process, do we have the ability to add to the scope pretty fluidly as far as, if we get into a section that needs something? whether it's-
Absolutely, to answer your question, we do, and we already started that. At the first meeting, that was part of the conversation. What add-ons, what additional projects or things that we want to consider while we have the roof open? Is it our HVAC system? Do we need to add more outlets and different plugins for our technology needs? And so, yes, a new roof, or this is a partial re-roof, this is not a full re-roof under the current scope. And so things that we need to consider as a district and present to the board.
Additional discussion? Okay. It's been moved and seconded and discussed. All in favor, raise your right hand. There it is.
Motion carries.
On to item L, hearing of citizens for non-action items.
None.
We have none. Just before adjournment, as it is Board Appreciation Month, thank you for all you do each and every day, as it was mentioned earlier, but I would say as a board member, there are easy years, there are hard years, there are impossible years, there are fun years, and this has been all of those rolled into one. So thank you for all your hard work, all the support and good conversations that we have here, and staying the course to make sure that the education of the SK students comes first and foremost above everything else. So thank you very much. Meeting's adjourned.